All right. So since the last elections, we had a really good talk with you, and since then, Donald Trump sit on the presidential office, and he made a lot of policies that are new. Some of them are alien. Some of them are not something that anyone was used to. So especially, I want to start with the tariffs first. There was a lot of tariffs that brought to essentially the entire world. We have seen 15% tariffs for everyone, and then he added up to certain countries based on specific relationships they had.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about his tariff policies? Do you think it's going to pay off for United States to bring all the industries back?
That's a good question because I understand the importance of having a tariff as a protection method, but that's if you have the industry already. You know, most of the steel industry is made in China. I think 54% of the world's steel is produced in China. Not a lot of it is produced here in the United States. We've exported, because of NAFTA, a lot of our industry. So these tariffs, can they work in the long term? Only if it's followed up by a real plan for industry. Only if it's followed up for real investment in bringing back jobs. You know, for example, here in the Bronx, in Hunts Point, in like the worst part of the Bronx, there was a factory that used to produce 50,000 metric tons of steel in a year. A lot of the New York City skyline was built from that one factory, and it closed down in 1976 or so. So if you want to couple the tariffs with a return to industry, that can work. But right now, I don't see the return to industry. So I only see an increase in prices, and I don't see an investment in American manufacturing or American industry. So I think overall what's going to happen is just that American people are going to get their wallets hurt, and there's not going to be any alternative option to buy because everything that, you know, people rely upon is made in other countries around the world. So, you know, I don't think it can unless we reverse course and invest in industry and manufacturing again.
With the tariffs that we've seen, a lot of countries are getting base tariffs of 15%, but some countries are getting a lot more. And recently we have heard India to get even more regarding their relationship with Russia and how they are buying Russian energy, despite United States tell them not to do that. But when you look into the situation, Trump is specifically targeting BRICS countries.
Yeah.
It's South Africa, Brazil, India, China is getting hit more than, for example, the European Union, because the European Union also indirectly are getting Russian energy somehow. So besides the goal of bringing all the industries back to United States, is there also a different motivation for Trump and United States to push these tariffs into these countries?
Well, first of all, you have to understand Trump's character. This Trump that we see making all these decisions is the same Trump that existed in 2016. He can be easily manipulated. If you stroke his ego, he's going to go after, or he's going to do and say stupid things. So this thing with the tariffs on the BRICS countries, a lot of that, I think, is motivated by people in his ear telling him, hey, BRICS wants to create an alternative currency. They want to compete with the great United States, you know. And he doesn't actually understand the significance of BRICS. He doesn't understand the non-aligned movement. He doesn't understand the Bandung Conference and how this is an expression of that. He's just being told you have to attack the BRICS because it's not America first. And as a result, he's going to go and attack the BRICS. So he's using these tariffs as a punishment instead of an actual tool for protectionism. What do you mean you're going to tell India who they can and cannot trade with? That's a horrible idea, right? I think he's afraid of BRICS, or not him personally, but his administration. People in his cabinet are very afraid of BRICS because, as we've heard Marco Rubio say about BRICS, if BRICS is allowed to create its own currency, then the United States can't sanction many countries anymore. That means America can't have the power over many of these countries that they have with the sanctions. And that is, I think, the main reason. It's trying to preserve American imperialism and maybe American imperialism isn't the right word, American dominance, this fake American dominance.
So when we go back to the more interior American politics, and especially the budget issue, where the new budget passed the Congress in the last few months, and it brought a lot of fighting in the country, especially infighting in the Republican Party. We saw different factions coming out, which we see Elon Musk complaining about what this bill has included, especially pushing out the fact that the bill is increasing the government spending, which under the Doge group he was trying to fight against. So when you look into what the big beautiful bill has consisted of, would you say that Elon Musk is right on this?
Is he right that it'll increase, bloated government spending? Yes. There's nothing productive in the big beautiful bill that I can see. I mean, there is a commitment to restore our bridges, our infrastructure, and our transportation ways, but it's like, that's common sense stuff. Government spending and an increase in it is not inherently bad if it's being done for the right reasons or the good reasons. So, for example, taking out $1 billion to build new trains, which we need here in New York City, yes, you're going to incur a debt, but you'll have a train. And so that debt will be repaid at some point in the future. So it's productive debt. Taking out $30 billion, as just happened recently, to give to Palantir, this private AI company, to increase surveillance on American citizens is not good spending. The big beautiful bill doesn't have much productive spending to it. I think a lot of it is bloated government spending. And I think that, the fact that there was such a big fight, like, for example, Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think, said, I didn't know there was this one section in the bill. I think it was about the AI, right?
Yeah. She said that she didn't read it.
Yeah, well, first of all, she said she didn't even read it. Which, honestly, how do you expect, first of all, should I blame her? Yes, she's a lawmaker, right? She's the person who's actually going to be voting yes on it. But at the same time, they make these things, super high, you know what I mean? For people not to, the party is supposed to be like, just put yes. Just put yes. Republicans vote yes, Democrats vote no, we all go home. That's supposed to be what it is. Thankfully, there were people like Thomas Massie and a few other Republican senators that were like, no, I'm not going to do this. But at the end of the day, J.D. Vance had to come in and he broke the tie. And it passed anyway. So, I think it's the continuation of just the same old, these kind of omnibus bills, giant bills they try to pass once in a while that nobody actually reads. And it just goes to show our government is just so inept and ineffective at passing any real kind of policy that, they make a big spectacle about it. And ultimately, it's nothing. And ultimately, the big, beautiful bill is not going to invest in anything. It's not going to invest in people. It's not going to make people's lives better. That's horrible.
So let's go deep into Democratic Party and how things changed since the Kamala Harris's defeat. Especially after the elections, there was a uproar for change. A lot of people are disappointed with especially the establishment part of the Democratic Party, where they're complaining about how Clintons and Obamas and Bidens are ruling the show. They're taking all the shots and pushing everyone else to outside of what they want. It happened in the 2016 primaries, happened in the 2020, and maybe even 2024. So especially after the elections, we heard Bernie Sanders to come out and say that we need change. And since then, we are seeing an important change actually happening. Regardless of what you think of them, we are seeing in New York City, in the very city that you're running, a character called Zoran Mamdani is coming out and basically being thought as the probable winner of the mayoral race. So this Mamdani individual is known for opposing Israel and opposing Zionism in general, which in a city where a lot of Jewish people are living. So this is a revolutionary case to a certain extent when you look at it from outside. So when you look at Mamdani, do you see a positive change to happen or not?
I think so. I do. I do think I see a positive change, especially because of his refusal to bow down to Zionism is one. But also he had the most common sense, I want to work for New Yorkers. I want to freeze the rent. I want to make transportation cheap or free. And I want to subsidize supermarkets. He was talking about how he's going to make New York City better. What was everyone else talking about? How they're going to be the best Israel supporter that anybody can dream up of, right? It's comical almost that it was common sense, which is also why I'm not completely impressed with Zoran either. It's like, oh, it's common sense to say you want to serve the people of New York, not of Israel. Okay, great. That to me is the floor for what should make a competent politician, right? Just because you say you're not going to support Israel does not make you a good politician. That just makes you a human being with common sense. It's like, yeah, I'm running in the Bronx. Why the heck would I think about supporting Israel? This is the poorest congressional district in the country. So Zoran saying, I'm not going to go to Israel, I'm not going to support Israel, to me, is common sense. And in terms of this productive change that you're talking about, I want to believe that Zoran is who he says he is, but we've seen this scam before. After the 2016 primaries, people were saying they want to change. We got Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And look at what she turned out to be. She ended up cheering war, and she ended up being a coward. You know, I hold her and Bernie Sanders responsible, not as much as some of these other cheerleaders for genocide, but responsible for the genocide. Because she knew she could put pressure on the Biden and Kamala Harris administration if she had wanted to and say, I'm not going to support you unless you enact an arms embargo to Israel. If you do that, you can have my endorsement and my support. Because they were already going to lose. Like, if it was the case that they knew they were already going to lose, then they could have stopped the genocide. Now what? Was her strategy, let me just wait? Now's not the right time to attack my party. Let's wait till after the election. Let's hope that Kamala Harris wins and we can put pressure on my party. Well, if that was really her choice, then all the people that have died between the time she made that decision, I'm not going to attack my party, I'm not going to withhold my support for Kamala Harris and Biden, till now, all the people that have died in Gaza and Palestine is on her because she said, let's wait and see. If that cost of those dead people was worth paying by not upsetting her own the establishment in her party. See, if she even herself had declared her run for president, right? Because there was that period between Biden and Kamala Harris. Remember, right, when Biden dropped out, that they're like the Democratic Party needs to, get a new nominee. Honestly, a small part of me was hoping she would run for president. I was hoping that she would throw herself in there. She would have been 35 by the time she would have had to be president. And, she didn't. And instead, she ended up backing Kamala Harris. And, well, she lied and said they're working round the clock for a ceasefire. They didn't. And then Trump comes in the first 2 weeks or something, and he gets a ceasefire. It didn't last, but we knew that it was possible. So, yeah. So anyway, back on Zoran and this progressive change, I think a lot of people are capitalizing on the need and want. Like, there's this one person running in Illinois named Kat Abu-Ghazaleh. She's running as a Democrat in Illinois. I think she's 26 or 27 also. And, she's saying we need to criticize and go after Democrats. Okay. But then she's being put on CNN. It's like, why does she have access to CNN? Why does she have access to all these mainstream people who are promoting her? It's controlled opposition. That's why I don't buy the revival of the Democratic Party at all. I am not interested in reforming that party. I'm interested in killing that party. Okay, that party should die. Okay, all of the senators and the congressmen who stood behind that party are all complicit in genocide right now, and the country will only ever atone for its sin if it decides to kill the two-party system. And that's just Democrats. The Republicans, I have no sympathy for them whatsoever, except for Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie. Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think because of her courage in speaking out against the genocide in her own party, where her party is very much for the genocide, very much pro-Israel. Mike Johnson is in Israel right now, and she's coming out and saying, I don't support this genocide. She's the first Republican lawmaker to call it a genocide. She has more guts than AOC and others. because her seat now is being threatened. She's in Georgia, in a heavily Christian Zionist area, and she's saying this is a genocide. And it's inspired other people like this guy, Aaron Baker, who's running against Randy Fine, to stand up and say, yeah, it's a genocide. So, yeah.
All right, so you mentioned about Marjorie Taylor Greene, and it frankly is pretty impressive that there is some kind of a rebellion inside the MAGA movement. And there was certain reports coming out of mainstream media that Trump is warning Israel that his own movement start to hate Israel and hate support that the United States is providing to Israel. So when we look into how Trump administration conducted the 12-day war between Israel and Iran and the strikes in the nuclear facilities of Iran, and then we have seen the Epstein crisis that came out inside the party, which caused a massive uproar against him. There are many arguments between people that the Trump's MAGA movement is start to get heartbroken by their own leader, and they are showing a pretty harsh, reaction to all the policies that he's pushing recently. So, do you think that when you ask the Israelis, mostly they're claiming that it's an online phenomenon and not a real situation? So, do you think that this is real? Do you think the MAGA movement is trying to distance Trump from the Zionist movement and try to push themselves to a certain direction, or you think it is an online situation?
It's not an online situation. It's a very real situation. You can only push the death of children and starvation of people in Gaza for so long before people start to ask, why are we doing this? Initially, for a lot of the people in the MAGA movement, October 7th happened, and they all said, okay, Israel should defend itself as any nation should. But then people start asking questions like, okay, it's been a year. Why are we getting involved with Lebanon? Why are we getting involved with Jordan? Why are we getting involved with Iran? Why are the Houthis? Why do we care about the Houthis? Why are they attacking us? Why are we attacking them? Why are we defending Israel on everything it does? And a lot of people voted for Trump because they didn't want him to be like Biden. At the point that Biden left the office, there were many peace deals between Hamas and Israel. None of them were taken. And so people will see the Bidenification of Trump, whether it's Israel, Palestine, or Ukraine and Russia. People are saying, oh, Trump is becoming like Biden. And I think Alexander Dugin the other day said, yeah, he's become like Biden. So I think a lot of people in the MAGA movement, the supporters, people who voted for Trump. In fact, some of those people support my campaign. They've donated to my campaign. I call them and they say, Jose, I voted for Trump thinking he was going to end these wars, thinking he was, going to stop the war in Gaza, at the very least stop the killing. They said, I would have been okay with the Riviera he wanted to build as long as people stopped dying. We still see people dying. It's like, who is telling Trump what to think and do? Well, we know the answer is, some of that answer is Laura Loomer, crazy-ass journalist, psychotic. But
is she that influential?
Is she that influential? She likes to say she is, and there's been a few articles written about how she has the ear of the president. And the president himself has said, yeah, I like to listen to her and take her advice sometimes. She likes to take credit for the firing of 20 officials. Is she that influential? I don't think she's that influential. I think she's definitely got his ear. I don't think she's all that, though, because like this Epstein stuff, even he came out and told her to stop talking about it, and she didn't. So obviously she's not like controlling him or anything like that, but she's definitely got his ear and is feeding him a lot of false information. So that is a problem. And part of the problem is that she likes to stroke his ego so he can be easily manipulated. But the MAGA people, they're tired of the genocide. They're tired of the genocide. They're tired of people dying. They're tired of war. People elected Trump because they thought he would end the war. One of the explicit things was no war with Iran. What did he do? He goes and he preemptively strikes Iran. It was insane. So, yeah, the MAGA movement, they want to move away from Zionism, and they want to do it fast. And I think the Democrats got the memo before the Republicans did.
Yeah. What do you think about the Epstein case? Why does Trump administration hiding what's behind that case?
It probably is because he's in there. I mean, but that doesn't surprise me. Who isn't in there? It's like a nuclear bomb of it's not just Republicans. It's not just Trump that's in there. You're going to get Bill Clinton's definitely going to be in there. A lot of Democrats, a lot of Democrat donors. You have Republican donors, but also you have a lot of Israeli officials in there too. Like, what was this guy's name? Ehud Barak, who was the former prime minister who was caught going to Jeffrey Epstein's house in 2016, I think, or something. There's a lot of people in those files that are in very important strategic positions today, like names that we don't know, that, are responsible for overseeing the war in Ukraine and Russia, that are responsible for seeing Israel-Palestine, that are probably in the Likud, that make up, important military positions, right? There's a lot of people who are compromised in these things that the people who are in these files, it's so dangerous for these files to come out because everything would, like the structure of everything would fundamentally collapse. That's why they can't release those files. And that's why I'm really grateful that the MAGA movement didn't just say, okay, the president said there's nothing there. My dad said there's nothing there. I'm not going to worry. No, they all got mad. They got mad and they refused to shut up about it. And that's a very good thing, because we need to know what's in there. And you can see it went from there's nothing there to, don't worry about what's in there, to now Trump said, I want everything to come out.
Yeah. But if he is, in fact, inside the files, why did he make it a campaign promise during the 2024 elections?
Well, you got to listen to what he said. He didn't say explicitly, oh, yeah, we're going to release all the files. He said, he was asked, would you make those files public? He said, yeah, there's a lot of innocent people in there, though. But, we'll do what we can. We'll do what we can. You know what I mean? So it's not like it was like a heavy, heavy promise, but, I think a lot of people attributed things to it that they weren't necessarily, Anyway, yeah, I don't think that he ever was intending on it. And I think, well, we just saw some reports come out that said back in May he was told that his name was in there and they redacted his name. So I don't know.
Yeah. With what Democrats are constantly saying about Trump, especially since 2016, you always heard the word fascist. He's been called fascist many times. In most occasions, he's been called as someone who's trying to kill the democracy in the United States. So they obviously harbor strong emotions towards Donald Trump. But especially in the latest talks, when it comes to a potential third term of Donald Trump, many mega movement people or the Republicans are claiming that he may run for the third time, or in the case where when he's fighting against immigration, he is trying to get rid of the birthright citizenship in the United States, and we are always seeing him being at odds with the law in the United States, not just the law, but the courts and the judges and the entire system. In many cases, we are seeing the Supreme Court is actually saving him when he gets into odds with many courts around the country. So where do you think this will lead into? Do you think that the Trump administration is actually showing fascistic tendencies where they're going to get rid of the democracy, or you think that the Democrats are using this to consolidate people behind them once again?
Well, is Trump increasing police state fascist measures? Yes. Do the Democrats intend to do anything about it? No. Are they going to say they're going to do something about it? Yes. They're going to say, and this is why you should donate and vote for us in 2 years. Because then in 2 years, we will come and we will change everything and we'll make everything good again. They use it as a fundraising technique, and frankly, they're probably really complicit with it too. I mean, this Mahmoud Khalil situation was horrible. What did Chuck Schumer, he finds out about this and he just goes, "That's horrible. That's very bad. It's very, very bad." That's all he said. That's all he said. Come on, you're a senator. Do something. Put some chutzpah up, and then what? Yeah. See, the reason I don't believe any of these people, especially Bernie Sanders, is a total hypocrite. He voted no to confirm Tulsi Gabbard, who I think is one of the more reliable people in the administration that I can see, that I actually trust. But he voted yes to put Marco Rubio in there. So am I supposed to trust his judgment of character on who he decides can be in the cabinet and not? No, of course not. He's a total hypocrite. He's a hypocrite, and he voted to confirm Marco Rubio. So would you not think that Marco Rubio, if you actually believe these things about Marco Rubio, the guy who deported Mahmoud Khalil or tried to deport Mahmoud Khalil and rip up his green card, if you actually believe, oh yeah, Marco Rubio is going to bring fascism and tyranny and dictatorship back to America, if you actually believe that, why would you vote him in? Why would you confirm him for the cabinet? This is crazy. They're not serious. That's why Bernie and AOC and all these other people are just all talk, and they're channeling that want, that, hey, we want new, we want to change, and Bernie Sanders comes and he says, okay, we'll give you the change. But it's just saying he's supposed to quell the fire and tell people, oh, don't worry, change is coming. It's not coming. It's not going to come from the Democratic Party. That's why we're building something here. That's why we're building an independent movement in the Bronx. It's going to take time, but we'll do it.
Yeah. So when you think about everything that has Trump done in the last 8 months, one of the most highlighted situations was how he was getting rid of USAID and National Endowment of Democracy's fundings. So what happened is, when you're looking into the foreign policy of the United States before Trump, in many cases, everyone is reminded of regime changes around the world. In South America, in Africa, in Asia, or wherever else, we were seeing the soft power of the United States with the help of these institutions being used to force regime changes in countries.
Yeah.
But now, Donald Trump, for some reason, he said that the United States does not need these institutions, and they're wasting the taxpayer money for no particular reason, and they decided to get rid of it. And frankly, we even see a certain outcomes of this situation by people in many countries like Ukraine or in Egypt or in somewhere else, where the pro-Western media organizations were quote unquote suffering because this aid was cut. So how do you assess this change? Do you think what Donald Trump did was actually for a good cause or not?
Was it? Oh, am I glad that the National Endowment for Democracy and USAID were shut down? Yes. USAID was funneling tons of money to Ukraine, especially to the Svoboda political party that led to the overthrow of President Yanukovych, which led to the Maidan coup. I mean, it was a regime change operation from the start, and the National Endowment of Democracy was just a CIA front. So am I glad that they were shut down? Yeah, but they were just reformulated. I mean, the CIA is still doing its covert operations. I mean, we saw that with this, what was it, the Operation, what was it, Spiderweb? The one where Ukraine did the covert attack.
The drone
yeah.
attacks, yeah. I think it was Spiderweb, yes.
That was coordinated with the CIA last year and could have only been approved to go by the CIA this year under a Trump administration. That happened under a Trump administration. So I was initially excited that he was going to shut down USAID and the NED, but they've just moved to different branches, the same operations under different names. The CIA needs to be audited to hell and back. I heard that Tulsi Gabbard is getting into fights with John Ratcliffe because he's not being forthcoming about what's being done and said. I hope that's true. Tulsi Gabbard is the only person I have any hope in the administration that can actually pull us out into some sanity, and be able to fight away this British trap that, they keep putting Donald Trump in right now.
But with Tulsi Gabbard, there was a situation when the Iran-Israel war started that they asked Donald Trump if he trusts his colleagues' opinions, not colleague, but his Tulsi
DNI,
opinion about what she said in the Congress about the intelligence coming regarding the Iran's nuclear operations, and he said that he doesn't care about that. So, do you think that the Tulsi Gabbard is a figure inside the cabinet that is not very much listened and not cared about, and she's kind of sidelined compared to the other members?
That's a good question, because I think she's somebody who understands she has a responsibility and a duty to her country. And I think that what she's trying to do, she's trying to intervene in different ways. For example, she put out that video warning against Hiroshima. She was talking about Hiroshima and Nagasaki and how we should never use a nuclear weapon again. That's a pretty common sense. Nothing in particular. And then she just got the vitriol and hate from people like Mark Levin and these other Republican conservative commentators that called her an idiot, American revisionist history, this and that. But, so she's trying. And I think she's trying to kind of thread the needle of like, I'm going to keep doing good work, and I'm just going to continue to expose. Like what she's talking about with the Russiagate stuff is very important, and only a vindication of people like Ray McGovern and William Binney, who were talking about how Russiagate was a hoax since 2017, even earlier, saying this wasn't real. So, it's good that she's doing it. I don't think she's just a figurehead. She obviously does have oversight over these intelligence agencies, and she's trying her best, I think. And I didn't think I would ever say that about her, or just about anybody in the cabinet, period. It really does kind of feel weird to say that there's somebody in the cabinet that's doing good, but everything I can see so far from her tells me she's doing good.
Mm-hmm. The one mission that's been given to Tulsi Gabbard is, the recent weeks at least, was Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton situation, where Donald Trump wants to go after them for everything regarding the Russia hoax and on his path to 2024 elections and everything with the felon charges and the whole thing where he was, according to him, he was witch hunted by the Democratic politicians. So do you think Trump will really go after Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton?
Hillary Clinton, yes. Barack Obama, I think today they released some like indictments or something, or, count charges on like a set of officials, and I saw Hillary Clinton's name as one of them. So Barack Obama, I don't think so, because he's a former president. And because of Trump setting the precedent in the Supreme Court, I think the Supreme Court said that a president is basically allowed to do whatever he wants under an executive order, if he was president at the time and he thought that it was needed for the national interest. That means that would also apply to Obama too. So I don't think they're going to go after Obama. But I think so. I think he actually might do this. We'll see. When you come back in a year, 6 months, you can play this and we can be like, yeah, he didn't do it. Or maybe, yeah, he did do it. Yeah, I told you. So
last two questions.
Yeah.
The first one is, I think we need to talk about the ICE operations.
Yes.
The immigration process. What do you think about it? Do you think
horrible?
Okay.
Horrible. Do I think that we should have a secure border? Sure. Absolutely. Do I think that we should deport criminals, people who come here who are raping, who are committing all kinds of crimes? Yes. But that is not an excuse to set up a surveillance state. Now they're working with Palantir to figure out the income, the employment, the taxes that all the illegal immigrants are paying. Legal immigrants pay taxes here. But see, the thing is that the increase in budget of ICE is not for the illegal immigrants. It's to police American citizens. It's setting up a police state. It's setting up a fascist state. That's what it is. And they're going after people who've been here for 10, 20, 30 years, who work hard just like everyone else, pay taxes like everybody else, have families, they own property here. So what? They aren't citizens. Okay. They didn't do anything to break the law, right? So I think it's completely absurd and crazy. And I think that people who run it, like Stephen Miller, are just racist. And I think that ICE is a very big problem. And, now if you want to join ICE because of their recent budget increase, you get a $45,000 starting bonus. That's most teachers' yearly salary. And you want to tell me we don't have money for things like Medicare for All? You want to tell me we don't have money, teachers can't get paid better? We have to shut down libraries because we don't have the money for it, but we have money for ICE to give somebody $45,000 as a sign-on bonus to go and deport some people, treat them like animals, get them out of here. It's horrible. And it is just a way to set up a police state, because if they ever need to turn it on American citizens, they most definitely will. Especially this thing with Trump saying he can get rid of, birthright citizenship. What does that mean? Does that mean he can just revoke can he revoke my citizenship? My parents were immigrants. I was born here. Does that mean he can revoke mine if I'm too critical of him? It's insane. It's absolutely insane. And I think ICE should be abolished, frankly. I know that's a radical position, but I think ICE should be abolished. That's what I think.
Okay, last question. Do you think things would be better if Kamala Harris has won?
Fuck no. Sorry. No. Things would not be better if Kamala Harris had won. I think we would have been in a nuclear war by now. So, does that mean I'm glad Trump won? I guess, because I get to be here talking to you, but we are at risk of another nuclear war right now. So hopefully there's a reason for you to come back 6 months to a year.
Yeah.
And we're not in a nuclear cloud. So, yeah.
Okay.
In some sense you answered, but again, one more time. Is Trump reshaping the system, the American system, the administration, everything?
Yes, for the bad. He is reshaping the current American way that things are being run for the worst. The executive branch, not that I'm against it having a lot of power. I think it should. The executive should have a lot of power. But it's being used to deport people that they don't agree with, who are critical of foreign policy, to spy on American citizens, to create a universal database by people, Palantir, right? And this guy, Peter Thiel. I don't want my data to be owned by a private company that's using artificial intelligence to track where I am, where I'm going, my shopping habits. It's insane, So unless something drastic happens to reverse course, this can only end in a complete dictatorship and a nuclear war.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you.
No, thank you guys. This was fun.